Have you ever felt that ache in your heart when your children don't seem to respect you anymore? When they dismiss your advice, talk over you, or treat you like a burden? I understand how deeply that hurts. But here's something important. Getting angry or arguing only makes things worse. Instead, I'm going to share 6 powerful ways to regain their respect without conflict, resentment, or losing your dignity. Did you know that most parents over 60 make a mistake that actually causes their children to respect them less? It might surprise you, but the very loving actions you think are helping can sometimes quietly harm your relationship. Stay with me until the end, and I'll show you exactly what's going wrong and how you can fix it. The time you spend watching this video could completely transform your family relationships and bring you the happy, fulfilling golden years you've worked so hard to earn. You deserve nothing less. So stay with me. Don't skip ahead. Don't assume this doesn't apply to you. Sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest difference. And if you haven't already, I recommend subscribing and turning on the bell so you don't miss out on future videos that help you stay strong, safe, and informed every step of the way. Let's begin. In today's world, the role of older adults has shifted in ways we may not have expected. Not long ago, those over 60 were respected as wise elders, admired for their life experience and insights. But now, many of us feel pushed aside, sometimes seen as outdated or irrelevant in this fast-moving society. With technology changing so quickly and the gap between generations growing wider, it's easy for us to lose the respect we once held within our families. Our children, who used to look up to us, now seem to look right past us. This isn't just about hurt feelings, though I know how painful that can be. Studies have shown that losing respect and a sense of purpose can have a real impact on our mental health, deepening loneliness, and even shortening our lifespan. When we lose our place in the family, we lose something essential to our well-being. Before we jump into solutions, let's be clear about what respect really means for parents in their golden years. Respect doesn't mean your children have to follow every piece of advice you give or agree with every opinion you share. That's not respect, that's obedience, and we're well past that stage. True respect means your children genuinely listen when you speak. It means they treat you as a capable adult with valuable perspectives. It means they consider your opinions, recognize your contributions, and honor your experiences, even if they choose a different path. Respect is about being seen, heard, and valued, not as a burden or obligation, but as a cherished member of the family whose presence enriches everyone's life. It's about dignity, consideration, and the acknowledgement that you still matter, that your life and thoughts still have meaning and worth. How can you tell if your children have stopped respecting you? Look for these signs. They interrupt you mid-sentence, as though what you're saying isn't worth hearing fully. They make decisions for you without consulting you first, assuming you can't make sound choices anymore. They speak to you with impatience or even roll their eyes when you express an opinion. Pay attention if they dismiss your advice or laugh it off. Notice if they talk about you to others as if you're no longer capable. Mom doesn't understand these things anymore. Watch for last-minute cancellations when they promise to spend time with you. And perhaps most painfully, notice if they make you feel like a burden instead of a blessing in their lives. If they sigh heavily when you need something or treat time with you as an obligation, not a choice. If any of these signs sound familiar, don't lose heart. It's time to implement 6 powerful strategies that will help you restore the respect you deserve and transform your relationships with your children. The first and most important action you must take is to stop chasing your children's approval. This is the foundation for regaining respect, and I won't sugarcoat it. It might be the hardest step of all. For many of us who have spent decades putting our children first, this can feel almost unnatural. But instead of constantly trying to please your children at any cost, it's time to start respecting yourself first. This means setting boundaries, learning when to say that 2-letter word no, and refusing to sacrifice your own happiness just to avoid conflict or disapproval. Remember this, your worth is not determined by how much your children approve of you. You've lived a full life, made countless contributions, and you deserve respect, no matter if they agree with everything you do. Why does this work? Because human psychology follows a fundamental principle we all understand. We don't value what comes too easily. It's human nature. When you constantly adjust your life to meet your children's wishes, preferences, and schedules, they begin to take it for granted. They begin to expect it. Worse yet, they unknowingly learn that your emotions and boundaries aren't important. They learn that your needs come second to theirs. And once that pattern is set, respect becomes harder to earn. Think about people you deeply respect. Do they desperately seek your approval? Or do they stand confidently in their own truth, even when others disagree? Respect isn't something you can beg for or demand. It naturally flows toward those who first respect themselves. Let me tell you about Dorothy, a 68-year-old retired teacher. Dorothy had always been incredibly proud of being a devoted mother. When her daughter Sarah moved closer with her two young children, Dorothy volunteered to babysit every day, even though it exhausted her completely. Dorothy canceled her yoga classes, which had kept her active and pain-free for years. She gave up her beloved volunteer work at the literacy center. She repeatedly ignored her own health issues, her doctor's appointments and physical therapy, just to be available whenever Sarah called. At first, Sarah was genuinely grateful, but within a few months, something changed. Sarah began to expect Dorothy to always be available, with no questions asked. She would drop the kids off early or pick them up late without even texting. When Dorothy once mentioned needing a day off because her arthritis was flaring up, Sarah seemed annoyed and said, "Mom, I have an important meeting. Can't you just take some aspirin?" After a particularly exhausting week, Dorothy reached out to a psychologist for guidance. With some coaching, Dorothy made a tough decision. She sat Sarah down and gently explained that while she treasured spending time with her grandchildren, she could only babysit 3 days a week going forward. The other days would be for her own health and personal activities. Sarah's initial reaction? Shock and anger. There were tears and accusations of selfishness. Dorothy almost gave in, but she held firm, with kindness and consistency. Then, something remarkable happened. After a few weeks of adjustment, Sarah started showing Dorothy noticeably more respect. She began asking about Dorothy's yoga classes. She called just to check on how her mother was feeling. She even encouraged Dorothy to return to her volunteer work, saying the grandchildren could benefit from seeing their grandmother lead a fulfilling life. Their relationship genuinely improved when Dorothy began respecting her own needs first. By valuing herself, she taught her daughter to value her too. The second powerful action is this: don't argue, lead by example instead. When your children disrespect you, it's natural to want to argue, defend yourself, or remind them of everything you've done for them. I understand that completely. Take a moment to pause and reflect. Maintain your composure when they lose theirs. Speak with wisdom rather than emotion. Instead of reacting negatively, choose a response that reflects your dignity. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It means choosing a response that preserves your dignity while demonstrating the respect you wish to receive, especially when your adult children are behaving that way. Why avoid arguments? Because the moment you try to convince someone to respect you, you've already lost the battle. Respect cannot be demanded or debated into existence. It must be inspired. When you respond to disrespect with anger or defensiveness, you actually confirm in their minds that you're no longer the steady, wise figure they once knew. You confirm their belief that you're reacting emotionally instead of logically. But when you stay calm, something powerful happens. The difference between their behavior and yours becomes clear. This contrast often causes them to reflect on their own actions. They expect you to react emotionally, and when you don't, it disrupts their pattern and makes them reconsider how they're treating you. Remember, your children formed their image of you over decades. They saw you as strong, capable, and in control. When you maintain that composure, you remind them of the parent they've always respected, even if they've temporarily forgotten. I'd like to tell you about Richard, a retired engineer of 72 who built his career on his sharp intellect and problem-solving abilities. Throughout his working years, colleagues sought his advice and expertise. But his son, Michael, a tech executive, had begun treating his father like an outdated old man. Whenever Richard offered an opinion about technology, Michael would cut him off with, "Dad, times have changed," or worse, smirk and exchange knowing glances with his wife. At first, Richard responded the way most of us would. He'd become defensive, listing his accomplishments in the tech field, reminding Michael that he'd been working with computers before Michael was born. But this only made things worse. Michael dismissed these as ancient history and seemed even more convinced that his father was living in the past. After one particularly hurtful dinner where Michael had openly mocked Richard's concerns about data privacy, Richard called me. "I feel like I'm becoming invisible in my own son's eyes," he told me. We discussed a different approach. The next time they met, when Michael scoffed at Richard's opinion about artificial intelligence, Richard tried something new. Instead of defending himself, he simply smiled and said, "You might be right, son, but I'm curious to understand your perspective better." Then he fell silent and truly listened. Michael's reaction was remarkable. At first, he seemed thrown off balance by his father's calm response. He'd been prepared for an argument. Gradually, Michael began explaining his views more thoughtfully. By the end of the conversation, Michael had actually asked his father's opinion on some of the ethical aspects of AI development. "It was like speaking with the son I used to know," Richard told me later, his voice filled with emotion. For the first time in years, he actually wanted to hear what I thought. By choosing not to argue and instead showing calm curiosity, Richard began changing their relationship. The third powerful action is to withdraw your emotional dependence from your children. This is a fundamental shift in how you think and approach family relationships. Instead of relying on your children to fulfill your emotional needs, focus on developing a fulfilling emotional life outside of your relationship with them. This means no longer waiting by the phone, hoping they'll call to make your day meaningful. No longer measuring the success of your week by how much time they spend with you. No longer feeling devastated when plans get canceled or they can't visit. This isn't about loving them less. It's about loving yourself more. It's about finding joy, purpose, and connection that don't rely on your children's attention or approval. It's about becoming emotionally self-sufficient in a healthy, balanced way. Why is this so important? When you become emotionally dependent on your children, you unintentionally place a burden on them. They begin to feel responsible for your happiness, fulfillment, and even your reason for living. That's a heavy weight for anyone to bear, and it often leads to feelings of suffocation or guilt. Your children may start avoiding deeper conversations or visits because they feel the pressure of your expectations. They sense that your emotional well-being depends on their actions, and that can turn your relationship into one based on obligation rather than choice. Here's the beautiful paradox. The less emotionally dependent you are on your children, the more freely they can respect and cherish you. When they see you as an independent person with your own fulfilling life, not just as their parent waiting for their attention, they begin to value your time and presence in a completely different way. They'll start seeing you as a complete person with interests, friendships, and a purpose beyond your role as their parent. And that shift in perspective naturally leads to deeper respect. Let me share a story about Martha, a 65-year-old widow who became deeply attached to her only daughter, Lisa, after losing her husband of 40 years. Martha's world shrank after Robert's death. She stopped going to church, dropped out of her book club, and rarely saw her old friends. Instead, Lisa became the center of her universe. Martha called Lisa at least twice a day, once in the morning to start the day right, and again in the evening to check in. She constantly asked when Lisa would visit next, rearranged her schedule at a moment's notice if Lisa had time, and showed clear disappointment if Lisa was too busy with her job or family. Lisa loved her mother deeply, but over time she began screening her calls and postponing visits. She felt terrible guilt, but also felt suffocated by her mother's emotional needs. "It's like Mom is drowning," Lisa told me, "and she expects me to be her lifeguard 24/7. Everything changed when Martha reluctantly attended a watercolor class at the local community center, only because her neighbor wouldn't take no for an answer. Something unexpected happened in that class. Martha had fun. She realized she had a natural talent for capturing light and color. She started making friends with her classmates, joined them for painting trips to local parks, and even started a small art group that met weekly at her house. Gradually, Martha stopped calling Lisa so frequently, not because she loved her any less, but because she was genuinely busy and engaged in her new life. She had stories to share that didn't involve waiting for Lisa's attention. She had plans that didn't depend on Lisa's availability. The remarkable result? Lisa began calling her mother more often, genuinely curious about her art projects and new friendships. When they did get together, Martha no longer talked about loneliness or feeling abandoned. Instead, she shared exciting stories about her upcoming gallery show or the plein air painting retreat she was planning with her art group. Lisa began to see her mother not just as mom who needs me, but as Martha, a strong, independent woman with a rich life of her own. Their relationship transformed from one of dependency to one of mutual respect between two adult women who chose to be in each other's lives. Our fourth powerful action might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but trust me, it's transformative. Set clear boundaries and stick to them consistently. This means identifying behaviors you will no longer accept, whether it's being disrespected, interrupted mid-sentence, or having decisions made for you without your input. Then, when those boundaries are crossed, calmly address it and, if needed, follow through with consequences. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I can't set boundaries with my own children. But that's exactly why this works so well. It's unexpected, and it shows that something fundamental has shifted in how you value yourself. Why are boundaries so important? Because people, yes, even your adult children, will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. If you quietly accept disrespect, you're unintentionally telling them that it's okay. You're teaching them that speaking to you this way is acceptable. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about honoring yourself enough to insist on being treated with dignity. It's about saying, I matter too much to accept this kind of behavior. Here's the beautiful thing. When you set healthy boundaries, you're not just gaining more respect for yourself, you're teaching your children an important lesson about respect in all relationships. Many of my clients find that their children actually thank them later for this lesson, as it improves their other relationships too. Let me tell you about James, a 71-year-old retired attorney who spent his career commanding respect in courtrooms. Yet at family gatherings, his son Robert would often talk over him, dismiss his opinions with a casual "Dad, you just don't understand today's world," and make decisions for James without consulting him. At first, James kept quiet and swallowed his hurt. "I don't want to rock the boat," he told me. "Family harmony is more important than my pride." But over time, James noticed how these interactions were affecting him. He stopped sharing his thoughts at family dinners and actually started dreading family get-togethers. After we talked, James decided it was time to set boundaries. After a particularly tense family dinner, he invited Robert over for coffee, just the two of them. "Son," James said calmly but firmly, "I need to talk to you about the way we've been communicating lately. When you interrupt me or make decisions for me without asking, it makes me feel disrespected. I know you don't mean to hurt me, you're busy and efficient by nature. But I need you to know that from now on, if you interrupt me during family gatherings, I'll gently remind you that I haven't finished speaking. And if it continues, I'll simply excuse myself and go home. I'm not angry with you, but I do need to be treated with basic respect." Robert was defensive at first. "Dad, I'm just trying to help." But James stood his ground calmly and lovingly. No raised voice, no accusations, just a clear statement of his boundaries. At the next family dinner, Robert began interrupting his father as usual. James simply said, "Robert, I haven't finished my thought." When Robert continued anyway, James calmly stood up and said, "It seems this isn't a good time for conversation. I think I'll head home early. I'll call everyone tomorrow." Robert was shocked. That night, he called his father and apologized. "I didn't realize how much I was talking over you, Dad. I guess I got used to just taking charge." As James consistently stuck to his boundaries, never angry, just firm, Robert's behavior began to change. Not only did James regain the respect he deserved, but their relationship actually deepened. Robert began to see his father in a new light, as someone with self-respect and quiet dignity. The strangest thing, James told me months later, his eyes bright, is that Robert has started asking for my advice again, really asking and really listening. It's like we found a connection we lost years ago. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward to the next. Our 5th powerful action might be the toughest for many of you because it goes against everything you've done your whole life. Stop giving without appreciation. This means a big change in how you contribute to your children's lives. Instead of always giving, your time, your money, your support, your home-cooked meals, without expecting anything in return, be more selective with your generosity. This doesn't mean becoming stingy or withholding love. It means giving joyfully when it's appreciated and stepping back when it's taken for granted. It means recognizing that your gifts, whether they're financial help, childcare, or even just your time, are valuable and should be treated as such. Remember, there's a big difference between giving out of love and giving out of obligation or fear. One fills you up, the other drains you. Why does this work so well? Here's a painful truth about human nature. We don't value what we don't have to work for or acknowledge. When you keep giving without expecting anything, your children begin to expect your support rather than appreciate it. They stop seeing the love or sacrifice behind your actions. They stop noticing the effort involved. Instead, they start thinking your generosity is just something you owe them because you're their parent. Think about it. Do you truly appreciate the air you breathe? Probably not, because it's always there. You only notice it when it's gone. In the same way, when your generosity becomes something that's expected all the time, it loses its value. By placing appropriate value on your generosity, not through demands but through healthy limits, you teach your children to appreciate what you do for them. And in that appreciation, a natural respect begins to grow. Let me tell you about Barbara, a lively 67-year-old grandmother who prided herself on being the family rock. Whenever her daughter Susan needed last-minute childcare, Barbara would cancel her own plans to help. She cooked meals for Susan's family, cleaned their house when visiting, and even gave financial support during tough times. At first, Susan was truly grateful. But over time, something changed. Susan began to expect that Barbara would always be available, often without even saying thank you. She'd complain if dinner wasn't her favorite dish, or if Barbara didn't put the toys away in the right place. Once, when Barbara mentioned feeling tired, Susan actually rolled her eyes and said, "Mom, I've been working all day too, you know." Barbara felt used but was terrified of damaging their relationship. "What if Susan gets angry and stops letting me see my grandchildren?" she asked me, her eyes welling with tears. We talked about the difference between giving out of love and giving out of fear. Barbara realized she had been doing the latter, giving out of fear that setting any limits would cost her the relationship. After reflecting, Barbara decided to change her approach. The next time Susan called needing emergency babysitting, Barbara gently said, "I'd love to help you, sweetheart, but I have my dance class tonight with Janet. I could help you on Tuesday next week if you'd like to plan ahead." Susan was initially shocked and irritated. "But Mom, this is important. Can't you miss your class just this once?" Barbara stood her ground with kindness. "This is important to me too, honey. I'm happy to help you on Tuesday." The first few times Barbara set these gentle limits, Susan was upset. But then something beautiful started to happen. Susan began planning ahead and appreciating her mother's time more. When Barbara did babysit, Susan started saying thank you again. She stopped complaining and even began asking how Barbara's dance classes were going. Barbara continued to help, but on terms that respected both of them. And surprisingly, when Barbara started valuing her time and help, Susan began to value it too. She even started offering to help Barbara with her household tasks and other needs. The most surprising thing, Barbara told me with wonder in her voice, is that Susan and I are closer now than ever. There's a new respect between us, And I'm actually enjoying being with my grandchildren more because I'm not exhausted or resentful. I'm fully present when I'm with them. Our sixth and final powerful action is perhaps the most fulfilling one. Build a rich, meaningful life outside of your relationship with your children. This means developing your own interests, maintaining friendships, engaging in your community, and nurturing an identity that isn't solely tied to being someone's parent or grandparent. It means becoming the fullest, most vibrant version of yourself. In practical terms, this might mean joining that book club you've been curious about, taking that art class, volunteering for causes you care about, reconnecting with old friends, or even starting that small business you've dreamed of. It's about reclaiming or discovering parts of yourself that might have been set aside during your busy years of parenting. Why does this transform respect so dramatically? Because human beings naturally respect those who live purposeful lives, who have their own values and passions. When your children see you as a complex individual with interests, relationships, and contributions beyond your role as their parent, they'll start to see you through fresh eyes. They begin to respect you not just because you raised them, but because of who you truly are as a person. They see your wisdom, your skills, your compassion in a broader context. Moreover, a rich life gives you joy and purpose that doesn't depend on whether your children respect you or not. It's a gift you give yourself. There's something deeply attractive and worthy of respect about someone who is engaged with life, who has stories to tell beyond family matters, and who brings their own unique light to the world. And here's another benefit. When you're not always available because you're involved in meaningful activities, your time becomes more precious. Your children start valuing the moments they spend with you, rather than taking them for granted. Let me tell you about William, a 75-year-old retired accountant who began feeling invisible to his 3 adult children. After his wife passed away, William's world revolved around his children and grandchildren. He'd watch the news just so he could have something to talk about when they called. He kept his schedule wide open in case they wanted to visit. His life was waiting for their occasional calls and visits, which seemed to grow less frequent with time. His children were polite but distant. They'd call out of obligation, conversations were short, and they rarely asked his opinion on anything important. "They treat me like I'm already gone," William confided in me, "like I'm just an obligation they check off their list." After we discussed the importance of building his own life, William hesitantly joined a local veterans group. He'd served in Vietnam but rarely spoke about it. To his surprise, he found deep camaraderie there. The men respected his experiences and valued his perspective. Encouraged by this, William volunteered to help with the group's financial records, putting his accounting skills to good use. He started mentoring younger veterans on financial planning. He joined their weekly coffee meetings and monthly fishing trips. Within months, William had built a circle of friends who genuinely appreciated him. He had meaningful work that made use of his skills. He had stories to tell that had nothing to do with his children or grandchildren. The change in his children's attitude was remarkable. One day, his daughter Jennifer called and was surprised when William said he couldn't talk long because he was heading out to help organize a fundraiser. "What fundraiser?" she asked, genuinely curious. For the first time in years, she listened intently as her father enthusiastically explained his volunteer work. His son Michael, who had always been the most distant, actually called William for advice when one of Michael's military friends was struggling with PTSD. "I thought you might know some resources through your veterans group, Dad," he said. William not only provided information, but was able to connect Michael's friend with immediate support. William's relationship with his children transformed, not because he demanded more respect, but because he became someone they couldn't help but respect. A man with purpose, connections, and wisdom that was being actively shared with the world. "I realize now that I was making my world too small," William told me. "When my whole life was about them, ironically, they couldn't see me clearly. Now that I'm fully living again, they actually want to be part of my life, not out of duty, but out of genuine interest." We've explored 6 powerful ways to regain respect from your adult children. Stop chasing their approval, Lead by example rather than arguing. Withdraw your emotional dependence. Set clear boundaries. Stop giving without appreciation, and build a rich life outside of your relationship with them. Each of these actions revolves around one core truth. Respect begins with how you value yourself. The journey to restoring respect isn't about changing your children. It's about changing how you relate to yourself. I'd love to hear which of these actions resonates most with you, or which one you're planning to try first. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, it's never too late to transform your family relationships and create the dignified, respected life you deserve. Your wisdom and experience are gifts to the world. It's time they were properly honored, starting with how you honor yourself.